I know I've riled up a lot of folks with my flat earth geographer work, but I think I'll tell you my history so you can better understand who I am and what I've been through and why I'm so passionate about what I am passionate about and how how I can be so persistent about everything. Um, so I also wanted to mention that TikTok has recently decided to start compensating me for subscribers. Apparently, if I can start getting subscribers, I can make a living doing this whole TikTok thing and actually doing science on a full-time basis instead of having it just be a hobby of mine while I shop for groceries for everybody. I did actually have a pretty good week this week, so I feel a little more excited about things and want to really kind of start promoting my social media even more this week so I can really get a jump start on everything as a result. So, I was born actually here in Seattle, just about a dozen miles from where I live. Um, though I moved to Long Island when I was about two and a half. My folks headed back toward where my mom was from. I grew up out there, and I actually had been through a lot of different kinds of schools. So it's not just having been to school for geography that ultimately gives me my logic and understanding and being able to figure these things out the way I did so quickly. And yeah, my schooling started out. I had a Christian private school my mom sent me to, and then I went to public school. And then I went in fifth grade. I went to a private school where it was just me and two other students in my class. Uh, there was another fifth grader and a fourth grader. The other fifth grader, Eva she was from China and was a really, really awesome painter and pianist. I mean, she could play and paint better than the vast majority of adults that I've ever met. Um, but she was awesome. She was one of my first friends from another country, and it helped me to kind of learn more about all the cultures and to really kind of understand how far behind my American classmates really were compared to some other people in other places. Her dad was just like super strict, and I mean he's a semi-famous painter from China himself. So I guess he had very high standards coming from that kind of background and everything. So that was cool getting to meet her and to have such a small classroom. I learned about classical music. I did pottery making with a kiln. I started learning how to play saxophone. Third grade, I did a little trombone as well. Um, Music has been big in my life. Fifth grade, I kept doing like cool stuff like science in the classroom where I was at. We learned about the periodic table of elements. I actually did a summer camp that year where we also did code breaking as one of the other things. I met actually my eventually bassist for my high school band at this little summer camp in fifth grade with um, I think his name was Mr. Ford or something. Yeah, he was really cool. He taught us a lot about all sorts of stuff. We had snapper turtle in the classroom. We had plants all. It was like a greenhouse classroom, and this is where we were learning about biology. It was awesome. So sixth grade and seventh grade, I homeschooled. One of those years, I wrote my own textbook. We did like a video correspondence school, and eighth grade. Oh, also, so in homeschool, I also did a little bit of barrel racing. I started kind of learning the beginnings of that. I mean, we did horseback riding in school and homeschool. I mean, my mom was pretty cool, like trying to find groups that would have really fun things to do, and we meet up and do things. So it wasn't just like, oh, homeschool reunion. It's just me and my sister kind of thing. There was some kids that I actually got to know. Allison Rowland is actually a friend of mine who I met during those years. We did a lot of puzzle putting together. in all sorts of hours of the night as we were getting older and being, hanging out as good friends. So, I had some good times then. Eighth grade, I went back to public school. I kind of wanted my own a little freedom, autonomy, or whatever. I was feeling a little, cooped up at home after a couple of years of doing that, and I did. I finished out eighth grade actually doing homeschool again. My mom was so wanting me to continue to do homeschool, but it just lasted for another like quarter of the year. Ninth grade, I went back to public school. First half of 10th grade, I went to military boarding school in Culver, Indiana, because my uncle was a retired colonel in the Marines, and his kids all went there, and it was very, well-known school, and had a lot of connections potentially for life afterwards. So my mom was really hoping I'd really do well there. I only lasted a semester. I hated being in the middle of Indiana in the winter. I had a girlfriend who the relationship was still going when I moved out there, and it ended up ending like right after I got back and everything. But whatever. I mean, it was a good experience, but I'm glad I didn't finish out there. I don't know. Public school was the next thing I went back to again. I actually repeated my senior year because my first senior year I got dropped because of absences by Christmas break. But I actually had like the highest grade in my in all the history department on my global studies midterm. I got like a 98, and they were just like so floored that I was not at school like hardly ever, like the entire year. And I was still like, I knew more about history and stuff like that than any of my other classmates. So I've always loved social studies. Geography was really that was more of a I need a job kind of practical skills sort of career that would allow me to continue studying the social sciences, because as I got a bachelor's of arts instead of bachelor's of science, I did take more arts classes. I had more classes that were less technical. There weren't as many technical classes as I would have had had a bachelor's of science, but I did have some technical classes too. I did a GIS class, a remote sensing class, climatology class. I mean, I really love doing geography, and understanding about climatology too has helped me to understand about the whole solar intensity proof, which is my first proof I discovered a few months into realizing the level and motionless nature of Earth, and therefore the local sun, that's why I realized the solar intensity proves that it's local. If you can go back and watch that video. I won't get too much into that. I want to keep talking a little more about what I went through, not just my schooling, because that's interesting enough as it is about all the different kinds of backgrounds, even just in those early years. But to know also who my family was ultimately too, because I'm actually a descendant of American royalty. My grandfather, he was head of Tammany Hall and the Democratic Party of New York back in the day. He was friends with JFK, Truman, and FDR. He's actually the guy, you can look it up in the New York Times. If you look up Edward Laughlin in the New York Times, and in reference to FDR, he's the one who was quoted in the newspaper, in the New York Times, saying that we needed a fourth term for FDR to bring our boys home, essentially. And one time he actually, according to my uncle, he leaned over in a room full of judges and told my uncle quietly, "I tell them all what to do." So I had all these stories about how my grandfather, he was, a Coca-Cola lawyer before he got all powerful with the politics for a little while. He didn't last that long because he said it was very corrupt. He got out of it. I think he was a better person than, the kind of person that usually takes that job. And so he finished doing that pretty early on. But I wish I would have known more about him and what he did. My mom, she was about 21 and when both her parents died, and she moved out west, did the whole hippie commune thing, and had me in Seattle. That's why I was born out there, but grew up in Long Island. And had my grandfather, he was such an influential person, and having known that as a young person, man, I saw the pictures on the wall of presidents signed with very personal handwritten notes, talking about personal things. signed to my grandfather, and I understood that, wow, okay, you know, the world is a lot different than what we're told it is. The whole idea of a conspiracy theory, I know for some folks, they're just so, it's just, you can't believe anything that is just randomly said. Because yes, yeah, people are afraid to just believe something that doesn't have a lot of evidence behind it, and they don't, they don't want to start making inferences because they're afraid their inferences are going to be wrong, and they're going to make a false assumption, and it's going to be an unpopular one because, generally for, at least until recently, conspiracy theory has been a very unpopular kind of thing, and so people, they want to be right. They don't want to find truth. They usually just want to just go along with the crowd. So, yeah, it's easy for people to want to avoid getting into the things they need to understand things fully. And so for me, when I understood that, we have a world that is, actually level and motionless, and it made me want to understand more about the whole reason why that could be and everything, and want to continue to prove it and want to continue to, find ways to help people understand. Because I've always wanted to be a teacher. I went to school after my high school time, getting my GED a year and a half late because of those absences. And when I went to community college, the admissions guy said I had the highest score he had ever seen on a GED. Um, I went on from there to Utah State to get my undergrad in geography. I had a wonderful, wonderful advisor slash primary professor who I got a good chunk, like probably 4 or 5 of my classes were actually with this guy, Ted Alsop, a really cool guy. Really made us think a lot about things. I guess not enough to realize that the Earth was not an oblate spheroid, as he was so proud in telling us. This oblate spheroid, how this is the real technical term of the shape of the Earth. But, hey, you can believe what you want to believe. That's okay. I mean, it doesn't change our flat and motionless reality. It just keeps you in a hypnotized consumer state, where you think a conspiracy theory is just a weird thing. There's no proof. People are, it's not popular to believe these things, remember. So, yeah, once I started realizing, early on, kind of subconsciously with my grandfather, how he had held these abilities ultimately behind the scenes, and I think I kind of realized that we didn't really have a democracy, but I didn't really want to accept it. I mean, I'm a person who has been very, spiritual and was very religious, even in my Mormon faith growing up, and I fell out of the faithful kind of religious world. So I'm not some kind of Bible thumping Christian flat earther like a lot of folks would assume a flat earther is. But I really I eventually realized those things from other reasons. I'll tell you a little more about that in a little bit. But at the time, I really, I trusted people, and it seemed like, yeah, okay, why would they make this stuff up? Why would NASA and all these guys lie? Yeah, I was on board with that kind of reasoning. Not good logical reasoning. It's a fallacy to sit there and assume that those in authority are telling you the truth. They may tell you the truth at some instance or another, but it's logically a fallacious position to have, to sit there and assume they are right. If we want to use our brain to figure out what is true or is not true, if we really care about truth and not just about popularity, we have to be on guard for logical fallacies. So definitely watch my last 2 videos that I've got. They're awesome. I mean, the barf trolls, Ball Earth, they have no idea how to really address those things. All they can do when trying to talk to me about my videos on fallacy is commit more fallacy. It's like, can't you just come up with an original idea and argue it, even if it's not that great of an idea, even if you're wrong? Just try. Like, put in the effort. Stop just spinning your wheels and constantly harassing people you don't know because you think you're going to get them, upset and make a mistake or something, and finally admit to you that I was wrong, sorry. We really do live in a globe. You beat it out of me. You kept saying over and over, show me 24-hour, a reason for 24-hour sunlight at Antarctica. Well, show me 24-hour sunlight at Antarctica. I have to take your word for it on faith that you it's there. Well, how hard, guys, really. I mean, if you want to talk about 24-hour sunlight ever, in any location at all, like, take a compass, take a GPS, take a video camera, put it on live, okay? If you have reception up there where there's probably no cell towers on that part of the earth. But if you can, put it on, or at least record it in some way. And, at least we can, I know video is not verifiable by itself. It's not, you need to go in and you need to check too. So if you got a video of that, then yes, we as flat earthers, then it will be onus on us to go and try to disprove it by taking on our own video and finding the supposed South Pole. Otherwise, whatever. But anyway, so back to conspiracy theories and stuff. I know I jump around a bit. I'm sorry, it's how my brain works. You just got to deal with it if you want to listen to my video, okay? Anyway, so back to how, I started realizing about things with 9/11, really started waking me up. That was wait a second. I didn't really know what happened then. It took me another 20 years to figure out that the towers were turned to dust by energy technology and not controlled demolition through explosives and thermite or whatever. But I had first believed the thermite story. I had first saw George W. Bush sitting in a classroom reading to kids and having them say kite, steal, hit, must. What? I know a plane and a kite, I know they're not the same thing, but it's very much an allusion to the similar kind of flying thing, okay? And then he reads My Pet Goat to them, or they read it rather to him after he gets whispered in his ear that the towers had been hit and attacked, terrorists or whatever. So that started me waking up. I started trying to operate within the political system. I volunteered for Dennis Kucinich. I actually rode on his tour bus with him doing advanced teamwork. I almost got to go bowling with the guy. That was kind of cool. He being from Cleveland, it's a big bowling area, and I bowled a 264 once and really enjoyed it back in the day in college and stuff. And so that almost happened, but it was cool. I got to really start to meet the people who were supposedly these leaders and starting to try to maybe support Bernie Sanders. Oh wait, he ignored electoral fraud. Wait a second. How in the world do we have a democracy if they're not even going to stand up and call out their own the problems against them as candidates? Then that means they're not real candidates. They're just sheepdogs. They're just patsies. They're there to just keep the wheels rolling because, Donald Trump was friends with Hillary Clinton before he switched parties. She switched parties too, much earlier on in her career because she realized, very intelligently I might add, that if she had any career in politics, Hillary Clinton had to get out of the party of the angry old white man. As conservative and Southern moral values in her mind as she may have had, she had to become a Democrat. So what did she do? She switched parties. And so when Donald Trump, her friend, you've got decades of pictures with them smooching practically, arm in arm around each other, yeah, this is my homie. Yeah, look at Trump, look at Clinton's, woo! All of a sudden, he just randomly up and stops hanging out with them and switches parties and becomes the great Republican hero? What? Okay. None of that makes any sense. Well, of course not. Well, why would they do that? Well, because they're colluding. They're pulling a fast one on you. You're so gullible you believe that the Earth's a globe. Of course you're going to believe that Donald Trump is a Republican conservative hero of the Christian right. Okay, yeah. So, great. So I start realizing these things. I realize, Obama is using drone warfare to, murder even American citizens on foreign soil. What? Bombing people in Yemen and Somalia and Iraq and Afghanistan and all these places with brown people. And all of a sudden, the Biden camp and everyone, they're all save Ukraine, save Israel, save all the white people. And all of the Democrats are yes, we must save Ukraine and Israel because, wait a second. Why are we all in love with war? Why do we want to see war all the time? Why? Because we all believe the earth is a globe and nothing really matters, so whatever, dude, right? Is that why we don't care that we constantly hold our nose and vote for really shitty options because they seem less shitty than the other option, singular? We don't like choices? We don't want options? Oh, that's right. We don't like freedom. Isn't that one song that Tool covers? Freedom from choice is what you want. Freedom of choice is what you've got. You don't want freedom of choice. You want freedom from choice. You want to be told what to do. You want to be told the earth is a ball, and the experts all know, and you love that fallacy because it makes you sound like you know what you're talking about. You know, it makes you sound like you've been to school. It makes you sound like you got a degree, and you deserve all those zeros that you earn year after year for doing nothing but sitting on your ass and pretending like you're actually useful to society. Cool. Okay, well, hey, that's all right. At least everyone can change. At least everyone can realize where they're going and what they've been doing. And then maybe then they can stop and take a second, take a breath. Wait a second. The world, it's not moving. I would feel it. When playing Jenga, everyone would lose automatically right away. You would never have a winner in Jenga. It wouldn't even be a game on a moving earth. It wouldn't be a thing. Movement is felt. Yeah, you know, when you're going in a straight line and you're in an enclosed car where you don't have anything blowing on you like wind would be. Because, right, wait a second. We have a spinning ball and the air, it just kind of orbits around. So it's kind of more or less in the same place as the earth because it's not going 1,000 miles. It's going occasionally blowing here or there, but it's more or less staying in the same spot, right? Because space isn't a vacuum. It won't suck out the air out of the atmosphere. Oh, but wait a second. Why do astronauts need space suits again that are pressurized? Even though they're not like fully puffed up like the Michelin Man would be if it was in a pressurized suit, you know. But wait a second. Why do we need space suits in space if it isn't a vacuum that's just going to suck away all the things like air and blood out of your body? Because vacuums equilibrate. This we have to understand that. Okay, so back to how my experiences, my getting to where I'm at right now. So I went, to undergrad. That was cool. I was still a believing Mormon. I married a Mormon woman in Utah, like all Mormon boys and girls are supposed to, and we had kids pretty early on. My son and daughter, my daughter and son, and those daughters were born in 2008 and 10, respectively. And as I had traveled around a bit with my family, I had a job in Massachusetts and got a job back in Utah. We were staying briefly with my ex-in-laws before we moved to Oregon to go to Willamette University. Now, when my ex-wife, which technically she's really my wife still because the judge let her leave even though the divorce was, number one, it was reopened and she still absconded with the kids in the early hours of the morning. Two, she never completed the parenting class, nor did I, because it was so quick and sudden that they allowed this divorce to happen, when the parenting class, according to Oregon, is mandatory for them to have a divorce happen officially, right? Okay. And according to my lawyer, she's supposed to physically be there during the proceeding to make the divorce official, yet she was able to appear telephonically. So there's 3 reasons why the divorce did not happen, because it was supposed to happen those ways for it to be a legitimate divorce. And because of that, I ended up appealing to the United States Supreme Court, all the way to the Supreme Court. I wrote, as a result of this divorce, or non-divorce, quasi-divorce, whatever you want to call it, the most important legal argument ever. I am a lawyer. I am not a barred attorney. I am a pro se attorney at times whenever I am in a position to represent myself as an attorney on legal matters. And I've won. I've actually been arrested multiple times for cannabis consumption, public cannabis consumption, and used my own legal arguments to win those cases. I actually got to smoke a joint in front of the arresting officer the last time while he waited for his ride because he was punished because he had to wait, he had to be on foot patrol. He couldn't drive a car, I guess as a result of his abusing his powers or something. Maybe that was a little slap on the wrist that they gave him. But all of this stuff when I was smoking weed in the beginning, before it became legal, the cops, I think, of the Salem police or the Mormons, because of my activism, because I started, as a result, let me back it up a little. In Oregon, I had learned of a Mormon woman who received death threats for wear pants to church day. So I realized the analog was cross-dress to church day. Now, having grown up Mormon, I believed that homosexuality was a sin. But I had gone, because I am open-minded, and I changed my mind at 42 years old as a geographer to realize the earth flat, I also changed my mind and realized that if deity created people with ambiguous genitalia, i.e., the intersexed, the hermaphrodites of society, the people who don't have officially what would be called a penis or a vagina. It's somewhere in between or somewhere not really resembling either. Whatever, that's cool. Whatever you got is whatever you got, okay? But here's the thing. If there is deity, and I believe so now, given the flat earth thing, and yes, looking at biology, it does make sense that our bodies are created by something far more intelligent than us. So therefore, if that deity did create the intersex, that deity has made people whose hardware is neither A nor B, right? It's just not, okay, so if that hardware can be either A, B, or C, I guess we'll call anything in between, even though there's probably a myriad of other, labels we can give each type of in between. The fact is, if hardware can be different, software can be different. So to me, it became logical that there are people who are transgender, that they feel in their body, not just homosexual, but there are people who feel like they're the opposite sex as they are represented. That's okay. Now, yes, I do agree with some of the conservative community, like Eric DeBay, in that I believe that the political machine is trying to use gender identity and sexuality and these kinds of things as a way to further divide people and potentially as a way to control population. So while I do believe that transgender people are very much real people who very much deserve to believe whatever they want to believe and have people call them whatever they want, I don't care. You want me to call you Tom, Dick, Harry, Larry, Bill, Mary, Jane? I don't care. It doesn't matter. As long as we're communicating and I can get your attention properly, that's all that matters on that front. But if that deity's creating us and that deity created you and you have something else going on then appears, that's okay. So fine. But I do believe that more and more people are coming out in that way because really people are a lot more fluid and flexible in their attraction and identity than is real. I mean, yes, so much of it is social construct. So much of it is boy plays with ball, girl plays with doll, go and do your thing, right? But it's not going to define us. It doesn't mean that's who we are. I think that's a distraction. I think the more that we just focus on our gender identity and get lost on that instead of actually realizing our humanity, that's the real problem. That's when it's easy to start getting so self-conscious and carried away and doubting who we are, and maybe because we want to fit in, maybe then we also want to be gay or trans too. Then yes, I think that is something that is starting to happen. I think there's a higher percentage of people who otherwise, say we never had any stereotypes, any kind of bigotry concerning gender, sexuality at all. I think we now have significantly higher numbers of people calling themselves, homosexual, bi, trans, whatever, than we otherwise would had we just not had any kind of stereotypes and things. It's become a popular thing. It's not. I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I think it could potentially become a problem if it becomes a population control issue. I think we should be wary not to let their media tell us who we are or who we aren't. If you attract a certain way, fine. Go be with whoever you want to go be with. If you really don't and you're just doing it for attention, then find something a little bit cooler and unique and original to stand out and to be that person that everyone goes, oh, cool, look at that guy, or look at that lady, or look at that Z, or Zer, however you want to say it, right? So, okay, back to Willamette University, because this gets, my story gets, I just scratched the surface, all right? I hope you guys are buckled in, because this is going to get pretty crazy. Okay, so yes, my ex-wife, she gets away with abduction of the kids, largely because of my cross-dress to church day. That was the big thing that I think that she, and even while I'm at university, was kind of banking on utilizing as the reason for doing what they did to me ultimately. Because the Mormon church also did this horrible thing to me, arresting me and throwing me in jail for showing up an hour early to my apostasy trial and refusing to leave until tried because I didn't know a single person in the building that was going to excommunicate me. So how is a church that's supposed to be about community and visitors welcome is literally in stone on their church meeting houses? How in the world are they going to go and have the gall to excommunicate someone in absentia with nobody there who's ever even talked to me for more than 5 minutes, let alone knows who I am in a real personal way? Huh? Give me a break. So, yes, they threw me in jail. And I also got off of those criminal charges of trespass because, I was supposed to be there. Yeah, I was early, but I had a right to be there. Okay, so after that, my ex-wife and Salem PD and the Mormons, they seemed to be like really mad at me. I'm smoking pot in front of the Capitol, trying to help people realize that it was an upcoming law that we were voting on. That got voted out, but the next time through, it got voted in, the Oregon cannabis one. But when I went to go to one of my hearings, because they knew I was coming back, I was at one and I had to come back to court for something else. As I was crossing the street, this unmarked car came speeding and blowing a red light right as I was finishing crossing the intersection. Another car saw it and stopped, and it was just like totally blown away. Like they were really it was like someone was starting to harass me. I later on have had other times where like I continued having people like speeding up and trying to, like as I'm crossing into an intersection, someone coming up from behind me from my right and speeding up and cutting in front of me just as I'm about to cross over into their lane to cross the road to get to the next side of the sidewalk. And luckily, I actually, one of these times, took pictures of their pickup truck. So I have proof of this. I have evidence as I'm in the road of this pickup truck flying by. I got their license plate. I never did anything with it yet, but because I'm waiting really to get the support that I'm about to get really, really soon. Thanks to people realizing that I'm actually here doing some legit shit. So anyway, that stopped once I started taking pictures, thankfully, of these cars. But my ex-wife also seemed to be afraid of that, as her reason for leaving. But there was no reason for her. Okay, yes, divorce is fine, right? We can all agree sometimes that we can't get along well enough to stay married, and we need to live apart and see other people even. That's cool. I love the idea of being able to have our own life and our own space on that level. But guess what? When you're a parent and you share children, those kids have a right to that other parent too. Not just you or them to you. Not just the other parent to them. You have to remember that it's about children's rights. I ended up getting involved with a nonprofit organization that kicked me out because of my past and my activism and everything, which is probably a good thing because they ended up getting in trouble for misappropriating the funds, misusing the funds for their time to put kids first. I guess kids was a euphemism for them in their pockets, so whatever. But so yeah, I mean, I was able to start getting in on some real great concepts and understanding children's rights and understanding that these lawyers are only there to benefit their clients. There's no one there to represent the children. And as a result, my ex-wife was able to take the kids, my ex-wife was able to take the kids and move them back to Utah. And I've gotten to do visits with them. And until just this last visit, out of nowhere, where actually not really out of nowhere, my ex-wife has remarried. So apparently she's practicing bigamy now, because she's still technically married to me, so she's married to somebody else. But she all of a sudden lawyered up. Now that she had another child with this guy, she all of a sudden lawyered up and decided that she doesn't have to pay me the mileage that she was ordered to pay because I haven't been paying the child support that was supposed to be it was $100 a month as like a placeholder per her lawyer, because the judge felt bad for letting her get away with basically child abduction and was going to make it so that she had to pay me the miles, any miles that I would travel, and that it could be deducted. At first, he didn't want to give child support, but then because her attorney had said that the child support system likes to have them in the system just to make sure. So you need a minimum anyway. So he's like, fine. He put the minimum in, and then he said, but it gets deducted. So like any miles traveled, and so she decided, according to him, and according to her new lawyer, that she doesn't have to pay me this mileage anymore. So isn't that awesome? I just bought a new engine for my car recently with all the driving I've done to see my kids multiple times a year, every single year. Now my kids are in my life still. They're on my Facebook. They're really starting to understand a lot more about the world around us. And this is good. I'm glad I'm still in their lives and I've gotten to influence them. I was the one who potty trained them both. When I had my first visit with them, I was the one who did it. A 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. My ex-wife didn't even... Anyway, that stuff's in the past, but it goes to show that I am a lot more responsible and a lot better parent than she or anyone else wants to give me credit for. So when I was in Willamette... I'm going... I got so much to say. When I was at Willamette and I had gotten arrested falsely by the LDS Corporation and I had my ex-wife abduct my kids, I had all of a sudden around this time had because of my activism, because I would sit on the north bank of the Mill Stream, which is across from, on the south bank there's this more sitting grassy area, and behind that is the student center with the bistro cafe in the basement there, or the floor level, and when I was in law school, during my free time, I would sit and I would smoke pot and I would play guitar with my Google cross-dressing Mormon sign. So yes, who am I? I'm the flat earth geographer. I'm the cross-dressing Mormon. I'm the maskless Messiah. You can call me LGBTQ or cannabis Jesus, whatever you want to call me. But I was on the north end of that mill stream, playing guitar, all sorts of covers like Radiohead and bands like that. So often that I had a student approach me. Her name is Juliana Cohen. When I post this video later, I'm gonna download this live, and I'll cut it into parts and put it on my TikTok and my Facebook over the next week or so. I'll release them in parts, but also in that releasing, I'll post a picture of the most recent interaction I had with Juliana Cohen. I'll tell you a little more about that after I tell you about what actually happened with us. So she approaches me and says she wants her friend Elise Manukin to write an article about me and put it in the Willamette Collegian. And so I was excited. Finally, I had people who were paying attention to my activism. They want to write an article. They love my music. They're mentioning all these specific bands I've been playing, like Pavement and Radiohead and all those guys. So yeah, I mean, they were stoked, and I was stoked. And so I said, sure. So Juliana takes the pictures for this article. Elise writes the article. And it gets published in the school paper, and all of a sudden it's like flying off their stands, because everyone knows who I am, having been sitting there for a whole year smoking pot and playing guitar every single day, basically. And so I'm starting to become friends with these people on Facebook and stuff. And so Juliana and Elise and their friend, Evan Zoe Zuckerman, who was a bistro employee. She, was one of the baristas, and she was one of the editors of the Willamette Collegian. These three young ladies and some of her other friends all friended me and invited me into the Willamette Collegian Before Our Time Facebook group. And Juliana, I guess, is the one who had created this group. And she put in the beginning of the group, there's this little blurb of a disclaimer saying no political comments, like whatever that means, and however you're going to enforce that. Have fun with that. Here we go, right? So, sure enough, at this time, she posts this little, it was like an old clipping from one of the old Willamette Collegian papers, and it had like a drawing of like a businessman in a suit and like scales the weighing of scales, like trying to like basically, and it was like this like blurb about, Willamette University, business or university, like it was, and they were like, what are we even here for? What's going on here, kind of thing. And so in this comment thread, they're all just lambasting the school, like tearing it a new one. So I'm so ashamed to go here. And yes, they actually had some legitimate gripes, certainly. At the time, there was like supposedly some groper going on campus and stuff. So they were rightfully angry. They were rightfully complaining, and no problem there. But the problem is that they're starting to get political with their conversations, because people think political means politics, but it gets a little broader than that. Getting into these kind of issues, it was starting to get into political issues, and so they're all talking about how, we need better security on campus. We need more money. And Evan is the one, I'm pretty sure she's the one who mentioned something about better security on campus or more money. And so I'm like, not trying to be a jerk about it. I'm agreeing with them, but I'm trying to be constructive. I'm trying to help them to realize, maybe we need to get, a little more creative with this. We need to think outside the box. So I'm mentioning things like, let's think about this. When I'm in Salem's in Oregon, let's try to like understand the bigger picture of it and try to figure out what we can do to make it better. And Evan all of a sudden got really upset, and like it seemed like she felt like I was like basically stepping on her toes and basically making her feel like, basically he's calling me stupid, essentially, and so she, all of a sudden she's unfriending me from Facebook, and at the same time there's other conversations going on with some of her other friends about politics. And now this is something that's going on, at Willamette University at the same time, is that everyone loves Obama, who's in the liberal camp, and everyone hates him, obviously, who's in the conservative camp. And I'm being critical about Obama, and the students are their friends, the friends of the three young ladies that got me, writing the article and are talking to me in this group. They are starting to get annoyed, I guess, some of their older classmates, some of the juniors and seniors who were very political about, with Obama. And I'm starting to like really lose clout among these students. And so there's already starting to be a change in feel for the rest of the school, as far as like, they're starting to see me as this like a pariah, someone who doesn't really belong in either camp, because I'm not in either camp. I'm not agreeing with the conservatives just by criticizing Obama. I'm criticizing both. But so as that's getting kind of sour with the rest of the students, Evan unfriends me after this conversation. I see her on campus 3 more times after this happens. The first 2 times I see her, and she just gives me the dirtiest look, like, and just shakes her head as she goes by. I'm like, what the hell, Evan? Okay, whatever. And so the 3rd time I see her, I'm actually with I'm wearing my backpack with my sign on. I got my guitar on a break by the corner of 12th and State Street, like one of the spots I would stand in, highly trafficked, so I'd have people getting attention to my activism. And she stops because she's on her bike and she has to wait for the light. And I stop calmly. I'm not angry. I'm just like, look, I don't know what your deal is. Just leave me alone. That's all I did. I told her to leave me alone. After all that, like, weirdness. I was like, I don't need this, So all of a sudden, next time I'm on campus again, now I go to the bistro, and security comes and tells me, it says I can't be in the bistro because there's a restricted contact order between me and Evan. Like, okay, why? And this is the bistro. I pay to go to this school. I'm paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to this stupid school and to get access to their cafe with cheap, shitty coffee and free Wi-Fi, so I can do all my really hard, like have access to my resources on campus and to make sure I can get all my work done. Because there's a lot of, like, I was writing at the time my appellate brief for my, LRW, legal research and writing class. So I was busy, okay? So, like, I had to do that. I'm also writing my divorce appeal to the state Supreme Court with my divorce. So I'm doing a I-589 form for my immigration clinic. So I need access to my campus and coffee and, all these late hours and doing all the schoolwork. Most people don't realize some of this stuff can get pretty intensive. And so yeah, they approached me and tell me I can't be in there. And so I go to Jackie Balzer, who at the time was the head of human resources for Willamette University. And I approach her and trying to find out what's going on here. She's like, well, I can do whatever I want. I don't need to give you a reason. I don't need to look at your evidence or anything for why I have created this restricted contact order. I'm like, wait a second, that's baloney. I'm paying to go to the school, and you're going to restrict my access to campus because some girl just is claiming that she needs restricted contact? And she's like, yep, that's it, basically. I'm like, and I recorded that conversation too. So I think at one point I'm going to release that as well. And so they have this restricted contact order, and I go defy it. I'm in there, I'm doing my work, like, and because they claim I'm staring at girls, these the ones who get this restricted contact. That was the claim. I made them feel uncomfortable. Really? So all of a sudden, out of nowhere. It's kind of like this whole Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump thing. They break up and no one questions. It's not bizarre like their relationship is ended out of nowhere after decades. Well, granted, yeah, I didn't know these girls very long, but we were Facebook friends. They just wrote an article about little old me, how cool I am for being an activist in all these ways and everything, and like my dreams and stuff. So, like, how am I staring at someone who's been looking at me the whole time? Staring implies that they're not looking at you and you're looking at them, right? Am I missing something on the concept of staring? Because staring is not having to do all three different major tasks for school and life while you're in this cafe. Like, how in the world did I stare at them? See, all of this was really just a pretense for them to want to kick me out. Because while all this was going on, like I mentioned how I was smoking pot every day on campus, well, so for about a year, maybe almost 2 years, I was smoking every day on campus. And the president of the school, the assistant head of security, the deans of the law school and the other colleges, all my professors, all my classmates, their parents on parent-teacher conference, or welcome the parents to school day, like, when it's kind of like, or it might have even been like to like let them come in and check out the school before you decide to come, or whatever. They were all walking by while I was blazing away. All of a sudden, again, back to the politics, the Mormons, and I mentioned I'm a Mormon too, so I know those guys pretty well, right? Well, the Mormons decided, because Mitt Romney was running back then. Remember that great, wonderful, exciting Republican candidate named Mitt Romney that everyone was super happy and excited to have? That they had to have this whole Mormons for Mitt thing to try to convince even the Republican friends to vote for him? Yeah, well, I went to that little Mormons for Mitt thing, and there was actually quite a few, like, liberal Democrat folks in there really wanted to hear what these people had, what could possibly they say, to get anyone to want to even care even this much about Mitt Romney, right? Well, I go in there, and I say, well, yes, you're right. Compared to Barack Obama, or really any of the other choices that we have, Mitt Romney would be just as good of a president as any of those other guys, if we use the word good. He would be an equivalent type of person. It wouldn't be a real loss comparatively to having Obama or anyone else. And they were all excited at first. The Mormons were like, what? There we go. We're getting some support for Mitt Romney. But then I said, no, actually, the problem is that they're all equally unacceptable because of things like drone warfare and the TPP was getting pushed through and Obamacare and all that stuff. And as soon as I said that, all the people who were on the liberal side of the aisle, who were in the room, who were like loving me up until that point. They were really, really nice to me, really sweet, helping me, getting me into all this different, like the clinic and doing all these things. All of a sudden, those faces went, they were so mad. They hated me from that point on. So much so that the absolute next time I came in on campus and was lighting up to smoke another bowl in my seat across the Millstream, I had the assistant director of security come up and approach me and say, "You can't smoke pot on campus." You've been watching me. That guy, Richard, he was watching me multiple times for over a year, watching me smoke pot. All of a sudden, today's a new day. I'm against the Dempublican cult, so I don't get to smoke pot on campus. Pot smoking on campus, it turns out, that's only for people who are sociopaths who support the Dempublican pedo war cult. Who thought? Whatever, right? So this was hovering in the background when all of a sudden we had Juliana Cohen and Elise Mnookin and Evan Zoe Zuckerman coming around and using the school, harassment, sexual harassment policies to punish me for not being, I guess, as cool to them as they expected me to be, for not falling in love with them or something the way they had hoped. I don't really fully understand why they felt so justified in doing this to me, but I know that they weren't trying to get me kicked out of school. I know that much. So at the very least, they can be slightly forgiven to some degree because they were really just ignorant little children still who had no idea what fire they were playing with by falsely accusing someone. Because not only are you at risk of ruining somebody's life, but you're also doing a huge harm to the system itself. Because what you're doing is you're delegitimizing actual victims. Because those victims' voices, they deserve to be heard too. And when you delegitimize those people's voices, you take the whole system and you throw it into the garbage. You make it like a joke. And then people victimize those poor people even more. So excellent work, girls, for being so thoughtful and thorough in the way that you abuse the system to get back at someone for not being quite the person you hoped they would be. Now, I know they didn't intend to get me kicked out of school, but Willamette University didn't care about that. All they knew was they hated me once I started criticizing the Dempublican cult, and they wanted me gone. It got so bad. I even had one of my professors, Professor Susan Smith, who was married to the judge of my divorce, who I actually had to have recuse herself because she was talking to her ex-wife about me and was basically talking to me prior to the trial about how she had already made up her mind. That's not how courts are supposed to work. You don't get the judge going, I know what happened, so, this is just the way it's going to have to be. So, no, I had her recuse herself, and instead I got a former DA, Judge Geyer, who still, committed absolute felony and aiding and abetting and kidnapping my kids. And ultimately is what they did by doing that. And not to mention all the mistrial, the aspect of their failure to do their job and the consequences that should go along with that. But the reality is that Willamette University hung me with hundreds of thousands of dollars, 3 ungraded credits, and a final paper shy of graduating. Yes, I was in law school for like 5 years. I did the long plan because I was running on student loans. I wasn't going there to make money. I wasn't going there to become some bigwig attorney like my grandfather was. I was going there to change the world, to use the law for my activism. And guess what? I've only gotten better at it. I succeeded in all my criminal allegations against me. And even though I didn't win the custody of my kids, at least I was able to get the most important legal argument ever onto the docket of the United States joke Supreme Court. Okay? So that's huge. I mean, I consider myself one of the most important people in history just for having done that, because we don't understand how important it is to have due process. If your judge has not given you a reason for why they decided what they did, they have not given you due process. That is what they're paid to do. It's like an engineer trying to like draw up some plans to build a building and not doing his work and not showing you his math proofs. It's ridiculous. So any judge or lawyer that is allowed to participate in such a system is committing malpractice. They're committing felonies against the people they're actually processing through. Like, sorry. So yes, that is my beginning of my education. And until I started realizing what I realized from Eric DeBay and some of these other flat Earth people. And then I started realizing all this wonderful stuff about the flat Earth. I ended up changing the whole mask situation too. That's why I'm the maskless Messiah. You see, as a result of having been slandered and basically like forced into poverty, I've gotten to be a delivery driver since my days at Willamette University. First for Domino's, where I would earn minimum wage, maybe a buck or two better. With the delivery fee that, I don't know if you knew this. I don't know if they've changed this yet, but the Domino's delivery fee, the $3.75 they charged at the time for delivery, 75 cents of that $3.75 would go to us. And then we would get tips. But you see, the people who we were bringing pizza to, they probably figured that we were getting $3.75 per delivery. So they felt like it wasn't a big deal to only like let us keep the 27 cents on the, at the end of their order, keep the change, literally the change. So that was the average, that was the most frequently tipped I got was 27 cents plus my 75 cents plus my minimum wage, right? In my 30s. So yeah, I got to go from law school to that. Now, yes, I've done a lot better with, Instacart. It still can be real trouble, to earn some money. Like, if I have days where I don't earn, then I have days where I don't earn. Luckily, that's not that common. And luckily, I have great days like I did on Monday. I ended up finding a $170 batch to go shop for $1,500 worth of clothes from Finish Line. And on top of the $150 tip, which is part of the total payment because it was like a $20 payment plus $150 tip, the lady gave me an extra $40 cash. She was so impressed by me. So this week started off awesome. I feel really lucky. Eric DeBay even had to tell me that, sorry, I couldn't accept your friend request because you have too many friends. So I've cleared house. So I'm sorry if you're one of my former friends who are no longer on my friends list. You can friend me later on, and I'll hopefully get you back on there. But I needed to clear room for Eric DeBay because I think he and I are going to do some pretty cool things once you guys start subscribing on a regular basis. A few bucks a month from every one of you could make it so that I could be like doing this full time, doing flat Earth geography and just science in general. And I fancy myself capable of being an inventor. I think that if y'all support me and actually help me to get out of this lifestyle of just delivering to people, you can make it so that I can become an inventor and create some cool things for humanity beyond what I've done for the legal world and flat Earth and Maskless Messiah, where I convinced the manager, Dustin, at the Loveland 29th Street King Supers to talk to Kroger corporate to end the mask mandate 2 months into its official implementation. So I have done some pretty significant things for humanity so far, and I will do amazing things. I've dreamt of these kinds of things, of being at this place where there's this building and this massive throng of like literally glowing people with this white bluish light coming and getting stronger and stronger. And who knows, maybe it's something to do with us also like unlocking the technologies of old. It seems like that was what was used to create the Great Pyramids, and maybe there was what was on these pyramids. Maybe there was energy things. A lot of these old buildings that are all around the world. I don't know the official history, but I do find a lot of that fascinating. Where there's all these things that look like the buildings could have been set up to have like this wireless energy flow going on. I mean, Who knows what that ultimately is going to be? But I want to do those things. I know I'm capable of doing something amazing, many things amazing, I'm glad that people are starting to realize. I've got a lot of people who are following me now. I've got a lot of trolls, but they're just really upset, and especially now that I released those 2 clips of that one, the logical fallacy video that Eric DeBay put out. My God, he's got some great videos, but his gravity videos, why the fall of gravity and why things rise, those videos are fantastic. But his 30 fallacies, like, it's so cool because he gets into like all these different fallacies, and he'll compare it to not just the globe earthers. He even calls out flat earthers for committing some fallacies and admits to have essentially been starting to commit the fallacy of no true Scotsman, by saying that no flat earther believes in an upward rising earth to compensate for this 9.81 meters per second constant fall rate. But apparently there's a guy in Scotland and his followers supposedly who do. So he's going to modify his statement to say very few flat earthers believe in an upward rising earth. And so, I mean, the fact that he's admitting a mistake, he's calling out both parties, I mean, that's a really good video. You guys should definitely catch those. And yeah, so I think I've got most everything I've told you about, like with Willamette, how they did what they did, my ex-wife, the LDS Church. The Maskless Messiah thing, I kind of glossed over that a little bit because I actually got booted from Costco and PCC and New Seasons. They're local to the Northwest. Those 2 last ones, and Costco is based out of here near Seattle, and because of them being really political, liberal companies who don't actually care about the bottom line as much as they do about the political positions, they decided to not let me shop at their stores. And so I'm probably missing out on at least a couple $100 a week of income just because, early on in the whole mandate thing, I had the courage to stand up and demand that they stop forcing people to wear masks. So, I'm going to keep that up, whether or not people help me out by subscribing. But it would be awesome if you would subscribe and to tell all your friends, spread the word, share my videos, and get into doing your own videos too. Tell people all about what it is that you believe in, and don't be afraid to be wrong. It's okay if we're wrong, because luckily there's some really great people out there who are also intelligent enough, at least some of the time, to recognize those moments and help us realize. So I think at this point I should probably get going. And I've been on here quite some time, and in order to chunk it up and to release it as a series of videos like I did the last one, I think it's probably a good idea to get going. But I'm glad I've had some people following along this whole time. I should also let my doggie, as you probably saw out of my shoulder, take her for a walk. It'll be time for her dinner, and I should probably get doing some work. But I'm grateful for your support and for any friendship I get with any of you guys, and fight the good fight when it comes to standing up for knowledge and truth. Don't be afraid to be wrong. Don't be worried about being popular, because you're gonna be popular if you have that kind of courage eventually, because that's gonna be real soon. This is the cool thing to do. People are really gonna start realizing it, and everyone's gonna jump on the bandwagon. So try to get ahead of that curve. Bye, guys. There it goes.